Harrison Ford, a name that instantly conjures visions of intergalactic battles, hidden temples brimming with priceless relics, and a brand of heroism that transcends generations. For decades, he has stood among the pantheon of Hollywood's greatest icons, carrying franchises on his back with ease and gracing the silver screen with a gravitas few can match. But beneath the magnetic charm of that crooked grin and the timeless allure of a rugged adventure hero lies a story so astonishing, so shrouded in intrigue, that it remained hidden from the public eye for years. Today, this secret is about to be unleashed, and the revelations it contains will forever alter how you see the legendary Harrison Ford. From a very start, it was clear Harrison Ford was no ordinary individual. Even before he took his first steps onto a soundstage, there was a mystique about him, an aura that spoke of destiny. Born in Chicago to parents who encouraged his curiosity, he often felt like he was meant for a different world, one more daring, more immense, and infinitely more challenging than the life he was expected to lead. While other children dreamed of playground adventures, Harrison imagined daring escapades across deserts and jungles. Little did he know that these daydreams were, in many ways, a portent of the roles he would someday inhabit. Few realized that Ford's early pursuits had nothing to do with chasing cinematic glory. As a young man, he toiled as a carpenter, carving out a humble living while wrestling with a gnawing feeling that he was destined for something greater. He believed this mundane existence would fade into a memory the moment he landed that perfect role. Deep down, though, he was burdened by a secret fear, a relentless dread that he might never find the path to stardom so many around him insisted he deserved. Beneath his stoic exterior, anxiety festered, and a voice in his head repeated that he might not be good enough, that he might be doomed to remain behind the scenes, building sets instead of performing on them. Then came a pivotal encounter, one that would catapult Harrison Ford onto the radar of an up-and-coming filmmaker named George Lucas. Their collaboration on a certain science fiction epic would set the stage for the greatest phenomenon in cinematic history. Star Wars introduced the world to Han Solo, a brash, cunning smuggler whose swagger hit a heart of gold. Almost overnight, Harrison Ford became more than an actor. He became a cultural icon. Fan letters poured in by the thousands, and paparazzi descended upon him whenever he stepped outside. Crowds clamored for a single glimpse of the rogue pilot of the Millennium Falcon. Yet, even in the midst of this global obsession, Harrison Ford carried a hidden weight. Beneath the confident persona that fans adored, he struggled with the demands of massive fame, intense scrutiny, and unrelenting expectations. He had always assumed stardom would feel like validation, a sweet reward after all the years of doubt. Instead, it brought a fresh sense of isolation and the realization that his life was no longer his own. Determined to prove he was more than just a laser blaster-wielding scoundrel, Ford teamed up again with Lucas and the legendary filmmaker Steven Spielberg to create another iconic character, Indiana Jones. Donning a battered fedora and gripping a trusty bullwhip, Ford embodied a swashbuckling archaeologist whose exploits in lost temples and tombs electrified audiences worldwide. Critics hailed the performance, praising his ability to fuse rugged physicality with nuanced charm. Box office numbers soared, and Harrison Ford was placed on a pedestal as Hollywood's definitive action hero. However, fame came with a price. Producers and directors expected him to replicate the same magic again and again. The world saw him as an unstoppable force, yet behind closed doors, he felt like a prisoner of his own success. He was torn between wanting to explore varied, challenging roles and the fear of letting down the fans who demanded more heroics. Studios constantly dangled massive paychecks, while magazines plastered him on their covers with headlines proclaiming him the king of adventure. The public loved his on-screen confidence, but none of them knew how precarious that confidence truly was. In truth, Harrison Ford wrestled with moments of deep insecurity. While he had always dreamed of stardom, the stark reality of living under the microscope rattled him. Casual interviews were picked apart by tabloids hunting for any sign of scandal. Fans dissected every word he uttered, sometimes taking innocent comments and twisting them into controversies. All of this weighed heavily on him, intensifying his desire to take control of his life and image. This desire for control led him down a road few outside the industry knew about. Harrison Ford quietly became involved in shaping the direction and tone of the characters he played, diving deep into screenplays and pushing for changes that felt more authentic to him. In some circles, his strong opinions earned him a reputation as difficult, but those who truly understood him saw a perfectionist who refused to compromise. Acting was not just a job. It was a personal mission to bring honesty to a world built on illusions. But here's where the story takes its most shocking turn. Rumors circulated within select Hollywood inner circles that Harrison Ford had come perilously close to walking away from the industry altogether. As whispers of his dissatisfaction spread, executives grew nervous. Fans were unaware of the internal tug-of-war raging within the beloved star. A part of him yearned for the freedom of anonymity, while another part was addicted to the adrenaline of cinema and the rush of stepping into the skin of legendary heroes. Tensions reached a boiling point during the production of a film that tested his resolve in ways no one anticipated. Scripts demanded physically grueling stunts and emotionally draining scenes, while the studio insisted on even bigger set pieces to top his previous triumphs. Every day, he felt the weight of the entire production resting on his shoulders. After all, he was Harrison Ford, the unstoppable box office titan. And if he could not deliver, who could? Behind the scenes, crew members noted that his normally stoic demeanor cracked at times. He paced around sets at night, replaying lines in his head, second-guessing choices he made earlier in the day. He demanded retakes, not out of arrogance, but from a desperate need to achieve perfect authenticity. It was rumored that he drove himself to complete exhaustion, refusing to rest if he felt he had not yet given the audience everything they deserved. Still, the public remained in the dark. Harrison Ford had mastered the art of concealing struggles behind a calm exterior. He carried an almost mythical status. Few could imagine him as vulnerable. Industry insiders whispered about the toll it was taking on him physically and mentally, but tabloids latched onto trivialities instead, missing the real turmoil brewing beneath the surface. When that production wrapped, Ford took an unprecedented step back from his usual flurry of media appearances. Some claimed he was simply being selective with press engagements, but close friends sensed a deeper reason. The man who had once lit up talk shows with his trademark understated humor was increasingly wary of the spotlight. During this period, his close confidants revealed something startling. Harrison Ford was considering a radical transformation of his entire career. Rather than continuing as Hollywood's go-to swashbuckler, he considered pivoting to more subdued, dramatic roles that resonated with a newly emerging perspective on life. Fans recall his earlier foray into dramatic territory with films like The Fugitive and Witness, where he had showcased a range that went far beyond chasing artifacts or blasting stormtroopers. Though audiences adored these performances, many still struggled to separate him from the iconic swagger of his more famous characters. That conflict between image and reality haunted him. He recognized that fame was a double-edged sword, offering both adoration and confinement. To break free, he needed to rediscover the love for acting he once had, a passion untainted by external expectations. With each passing year, he weighed the possibility of stepping away from the roles that had defined him, as well as the unimaginable reaction if he did so. Would fans accept him in a quieter, more introspective part? Or would they clamor for another Indiana Jones or another turn as a gruff pilot with a heart of gold? Enter a moment that would push him to the brink, an event known only to a handful of studio insiders. During an intense press tour for a film that demanded enormous emotional labor, Harrison Ford found himself locked in a dressing room, thoroughly drained and overwhelmed by an exhausting schedule. He spent hours pacing, trying to summon the energy for yet another round of interviews. Shaken by the magnitude of the responsibilities he bore, he reportedly confided to a friend that he felt like he was living inside a constant performance, even off camera. According to whispers, he contemplated walking away that very day. The decision could have altered Hollywood forever. Had Harrison Ford actually turned his back on the industry, it might have meant the abrupt end to the characters so many cherished. Rumors about his near departure spread like wildfire among the few who knew, and studio executives braced for potential chaos. But just when it seemed he would vanish, an unexpected opportunity emerged, one that would pull him back from the edge and reawaken his hunger for storytelling. Producers approached him with a role that was neither a swashbuckler nor a galactic hero. Instead, it was a challenging, layered part that demanded emotional vulnerability, a far cry from the rugged action star image. Intrigued by the chance to reveal a side of himself he had long kept hidden, Harrison Ford tentatively agreed to take the role. Filming proved to be an emotional battleground, but it also became a pivotal turning point, allowing him to process years of accumulated tension and reignite the spark he had once felt as a hungry young actor. Word of his performance in that film began circulating among critics who were stunned by the raw vulnerability on display. This was not the Harrison Ford they had grown accustomed to, the unflappable adventurer, oozing casual bravado. Instead, audiences saw a man grappling with universal fears and personal demons, a portrayal marked by an honesty that can only come from someone who has walked through the fire of public scrutiny and survived. Suddenly, everything shifted. The media that once hounded him for glimpses of comedic soundbites now praised his courage in revealing an unexpected depth. Fans found themselves inspired by the notion that the hero they admired for decades had wrestled with doubts and emerged triumphant. In an era of fleeting fame and disposable idols, Harrison Ford's authenticity blazed as a beacon of hope, reminding people that even the mightiest figures are human. For the first time, he felt comfortable discussing the emotional journey that had led him to this point. He opened up in interviews, cautiously at first, about the complexities of balancing personal identity with larger-than-life personas. It was as though he had finally come to terms with his fears, using them as fuel for a powerful performance that underlined his depth as both an actor and a person. Yet the public still remained unaware of the full extent of his internal battle. Only in private circles was it whispered that Harrison Ford had once stood at a crossroads, ready to walk away from the very thing that made him a legend. The studios hushed any talk of his near retirement, terrified that fans might lose faith if they realized how close they had come to losing their idol. Tabloids, ironically, were too caught up in trivial chatter to catch wind of the real story. In recent years, Ford surprised the industry again by revisiting some of his iconic roles, breathing fresh life into cherished characters that shaped generations. Critics questioned why he chose to return. Was it a mere cash grab, or was he on a quest to reclaim something left unfinished? The truth, as those close to him hint, is more profound. By stepping back into those iconic shoes, Harrison Ford was confronting his past, this time armed with a new level of self-awareness and acceptance. He no longer felt enslaved by the expectations of fans and the demands of studios. Instead, he recognized these franchises as opportunities to connect with the audience on his own terms, to deliver performances laced with nuances gleaned from decades of introspection. This time, the applause felt different. No longer did he see it as an external validation, but rather as a communal celebration of storytelling, of shared memories between an actor and the public that had grown up with his characters. And so, the legend of Harrison Ford took on a new dimension. The once guarded, quietly intense superstar had evolved into a figure who embraced his legacy wholeheartedly while also forging new paths. In the end, his darkest moment, the one where he nearly abandoned the industry, became the catalyst for the deep self-discovery that would guide him forward. There remains one final, unspoken truth that has lingered behind the scenes. A revelation so quietly potent that it could rewrite the narrative of his entire career. Those who have heard the rumors say that, at the height of his crisis, Harrison Ford penned a personal manifesto, a document filled with raw admissions of fear, anger, frustration, and hope. If ever released, this manifesto might lay bare the soul of a man the world only thought they knew. Whether he will ever choose to share it publicly remains to be seen. What is clear is that this hidden document, this personal testimony, fueled his rebirth as an artist. Freed from the tyranny of external expectations, he poured his heart into characters that demanded not just physical heroism, but emotional bravery. The result was a second wind that saw him tackling an array of roles, each marked by a newfound complexity. Throughout his personal odyssey, one realization stood out: the difference between acting as a job and acting as an expression of the soul. For Harrison Ford, it was the latter that sustained him when fame lost its sheen. He discovered that authenticity could be the strongest foundation in a world of illusions. Today, as fans marvel at his enduring energy and peerless legacy, the story of that crucial turning point remains locked behind the scenes. It is whispered in film school halls, discussed in hushed tones at industry gatherings, and sometimes teased by old friends who recall glimpses of Ford's most vulnerable days. Yet, for the millions of admirers who see him as an untouchable icon, the magnitude of his near departure remains largely unknown. Until now, this is the secret that has finally been exposed. Harrison Ford, the unstoppable, unflappable Hollywood titan, stood one breath away from walking away from it all. Only a razor-thin margin prevented the greatest exodus in film history, an exit that would have robbed generations of an actor who inspired us to dream beyond the stars and to never stop chasing adventure. In learning of this hidden chapter, we come to appreciate the depth and tenacity of a man who not only survived the crucible of global stardom, but managed to thrive in it, shaping entire franchises and enthralling fans across decades. In the end, the truth is far more compelling than myth. Harrison Ford was not born a legend. He became one through perseverance, passion, and the courage to face his own demons. His story is a testament to the power of resilience, an unspoken reminder that even the brightest stars can tremble with uncertainty behind the scenes. Yet it is precisely this struggle that makes his legacy all the more awe-inspiring. He transformed doubt into confidence, fear into action, and a single near-breaking point into the very flame that reignited his career. As we peel back the layers of Harrison Ford's carefully guarded world, we find a narrative pulsing with human complexity, a narrative that reveals so much more than the glitz of Hollywood or the allure of timeless characters. Ultimately, it is the story of a man confronted by the very dream he once longed for, forced to decide whether to rise to the challenge or vanish into obscurity. And Harrison Ford, true to the heroes he portrayed, chose to rise. This is his untold secret, now laid bare for those who dare to see beyond the blockbuster hits and pop culture mania. A story that dares us to question our own boundaries, to wonder how we might respond when faced with the crushing burden of extraordinary possibilities. And it is a story that proves, beyond any doubt, that even the icons we adore are, at the end of the day, unmistakably human.